Good morning and welcome to the AutoTalk Weekly Wrap. I'm Richard Edwards and I had not a bad little holiday. Yes. How are you guys today? David down in Wellington, Graham in Auckland. Things ticking over?
Yeah, it's we had a lovely day yesterday, a bit grayer today, but the forecast is good, so I might get out over the weekend to tootle on the cruiser over into the Rapper.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And we're selling a few cars up here in sunny Auckland.
Oh, that's good.
There certainly
Yeah,
seems
right.
to have been a little bit of a turn out there, and I think obviously we've had some excellent economic news this week with the inflation dropping and certainly some big hints. We're going to see some big interest rate cuts coming. So,
Sentiment. It's what it's all about in this business, isn't it?
I think the sentiment is turning. I'm even hearing that some electric vehicles have been selling. So it's kind of like, yeah. So it's an interesting one. Is this the turn? Was it stay alive to 2025 or stay alive till the 18th of October 2024? Either way, let's just all hope we start making money soon because
God loves an optimist, Richard.
yeah.
Well, it's almost 2025, Richard.
Yes.
Well, if you follow the pattern of department stores, all the Christmas decorations are already up in the stores up here, so it may as well be 2025 because they all think it's bloody Christmas anyway. So let's just call it quits in the calendar and go straight to January.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of positive things, of course, we have AutoTalk Live heading to Christchurch for the first time on Tuesday. Now, Graham and we are going to drive down, weirdly. I lately, like this whole year, I think I've flown into Christchurch once, but I've been to Christchurch 3 times. I've driven in every time, which is kind of odd for someone who lives in Northland, but that's the way it works. So yeah, we're going to drive down and do a one stint wonder, a bit of a cannonball,
Cannonball.
legal speeds in the BYD Sea Lion 06.
Is it the 6? It's the 6. It is the 6. Yes.
Yeah. Which you'll read about probably down the track at our new acquisition Autocar, and probably a video somewhere around as well. So that should be a bit of fun. But look, we're virtually sold out for AutoTalk Live in Christchurch. There's going to be 100 people in the room, which is not massive for a conference, but for a one-dayer for the dealer market, so tightly focused and with a really high dealer component to it, we think that's a pretty solid effort. So yeah, we're pretty excited for that. There are a few. There are some theatre seats left if anyone's super keen. But we also have a few seats on a table of a sponsor I won't name. And they've said, look, if anyone's watching this and they want to come along and want a seat, and you have to be a dealer for this, sorry, ancillary industries, you'll have to buy your own theatre seat. But if you are a dealer and you're listening or watching this, email me, richard@automediagroup.co.nz, and I will see what I can do about getting you a seat on that sponsor's table. So there you go. That's a nice wee offer.
That's an offer.
In the morning.
That's a very good offer.
Yes, exactly. So, throw us a line on that. You got to be in Christchurch on Tuesday. It starts at 12, ends at 5:30. You might want to have a taxi home. Just saying. Some great speakers led off by Stephen Timperley, who is going to go through those really key Deloitte industry benchmarks that are so important to so many dealers. And we have plenty of other great speakers in there for the day. So, go to autotalk.co.nz/live for that. And we'll work from there. I've just had some breaking news come into my window. I'm going to answer that person, just confirm if I can say it.
That's really like breaking news. This is a show that plays. Yeah. I was going to say, while he's busy figuring out breaking news, I think there has been a small little window of change in the retail marketplace. We're seeing more people coming through, more inquiry, people starting to, and I've said this all the way through the show, the whole year. So much of what we do is not based around whether people actually have the money in the bank or not, because I think they do. It's the sentiment of spending. If they feel good enough about the situation moving forward, they'll spend the money they've got now. I don't think we have had an issue with there being no cash. In fact, if you attended the AutoTalk Live event earlier on in the year, one of the points that I think it might have been Stephen Timperley actually made was that there's plenty of cash. There's more cash sitting around in our economy than there has been for a very, very long time, but it's locked up. It's locked away in term deposits and investments at the moment. People are not prepared to actually spend it. It's just whether they choose to use it. And we're seeing now, I think, a bit more usage of that money and people starting to free the reins a wee bit. And one of the things, obviously, people consider when they've got a bit of money to spend is either an overseas holiday or a car. They're the two sort of big things that I think consumers start focusing back on again. I don't know what the market's like for holidays right now, but I can tell you damn sure the market for cars is looking a bit better than it has.
Yeah, and I think you're right there, Graham. And my test has been around a measure of discretionary income and how much discretionary income starts to flow. Businesses who are astute and have learned from previous challenging times like the GFC, etc., have tended to say, well, got some cash. Let's keep that for a rainy day and hope the rainy day doesn't come. So I think there's been a little bit of astute business practice going on, which has been good to see. My test of discretionary income is how well is the motorcycle market going? I mean, I look at the automotive sector because that tends to lag cars and trucks. And I'm seeing a lift. Part of it is because of the warmer spring weather, and there's always a little bit of lift this time.
Spring, yeah.
But it's starting to tick over, and that's a good sign. So I do think you're right. It's the perception. That 0.5% drop in OCR, and now there's talk about a 0.5 to 0.75 drop, perhaps in late November. I mean, I have to admit, I was hoping for a 0.5 drop, but was on the 0.25 would be what the Reserve Bank did. So I was pleasantly surprised and pleased when it was a 0.5 drop. The interest inflation for the last 24 months, which is 3 months old, by the way, it's always 3 months old by the time it comes out, at 2.2%, shows just how much inflation is now under control. A lot of that, though, does depend on overseas inflationary pressures, such as the price of fuel, which has since 3 months dropped. But we've got a range of internal costs that are hard to control: insurance costs, rates, insurance. They're tough. So I think we're just starting to see it ease out. And certainly, if there's at least another 0.5 drop in November, which I would expect to be the minimum drop, it's looking good for summer in 2025, or looking better, should I say?
Now, this breaking news, we can confirm it. It's 8 minutes old on LinkedIn, so it's younger than this podcast. We're about the same age as this podcast. This is Dean Sheed, very well known amongst the trade. He's been with European motor distributors for a very long time in various leadership roles, including leading Volkswagen and more recently Audi, and then lately he's been running their branded financial products division. Dean Sheed's posted this to LinkedIn this morning. Hello, LinkedIn community. Today marks my last day at European motor distributors and the Giltrap Group after almost 26 years of service. Time to take a different road for my development and business life. Leading and developing the national Volkswagen and then Audi businesses, and recently setting up the finance, insurance, and mobility area across the brands has developed my skills and allowed me to build relationships locally and in Europe, for which I will be forever grateful. There have been a large number of you that I have worked with over that time, not to mention dealers, networks, external partners, factory colleagues, and external member organisations I've been part of. However, I am most proud of the people I've recruited or worked alongside and assisted in their development and in the outcomes that we have achieved together for the brands and businesses. Sincere thanks to Glenn Tunnock and especially Richard Giltrap and Michael Giltrap for their support over many years. So there you go. That is a big name in the industry with a big job, stepping... Well, we don't know if he's stepping down, sideways, where he is going. So, yeah, interesting one to see there. I know there has been a little bit of reshuffling lately within the Giltrap Group, more of which we'll probably touch on as we get through this thing. I'm not sure if this is tied to that or whether it's time for Dean, after a very long effort with that company, to try something new. Who knows if we'll see him pop up somewhere. We have seen a little bit of a trend of people popping up at dealers, people trying their hand in dealer land. I'm not sure if we'll see Dean do that, but yeah, a really interesting move there. You must have dealt with Dean a little bit in your MIA days, David?
More than a little bit, yes. He was a constant over my time there. He is he struck me as a person who not only was good at his job and the brand that he was representing, but he also had an ability to think about what was happening across the sector within the automotive sector in the new vehicle sales. And of course, he was also very keen on leading that electrification process and advocacy for the Giltrap group with his tenure on Drive Electric. So he was very much thinking about the future. I certainly wish him well. I'm not totally surprised that he's called it time there and is looking for something else to do. He's a man with a lot of skills, and I think wherever he goes, he will certainly do well.
Just looking at his profile, he of course did 12 years with Ford prior to going to EMD. So we're talking about close, 38 to 40 years of industry experience there. So hopefully he stays within the industry. Who knows? We'll see what happens there. I'll no doubt be reaching out to him, and we'll be finding out what the plan is with him in the very near future. Now, let's move on. Before we get to the news, who likes a little bit of poetic justice?
Yes.
What else are we here for, Richard? Let's be honest.
Now, people with webcams who post videos of other people online are, to me, almost as just big of an arsehole sometimes as the person who was being the arsehole that they did. And there's some fruity language in this, and I'm not sure we'll get the audio, but hopefully you'll get the video. Now, this is on Reddit, so I don't know if you guys are on Reddit, but certainly I'm sure some of our viewers are. Reddit /Auckland. So I'm going to put this up on the stage and zoom in on this video here. Oh, hang on, where's that gone? Gotta love this. Right. Can you guys still see that video?
It's not playing, but yes, we can see the screen.
Okay, here we go. So watch this. Watch this. Watch the Land Rover. Pulls out into traffic. Little bit of a hand gesture there. You'll zoom in a second. But note the very distinctive vehicle. Tent, so forth. Bit of a finger up there. Right. So that was posted yesterday morning on Reddit. And now if we go to a video that was posted last night.
So there must be a link here somewhere, Richard.
There is.
Oh. There is a God.
Like that was a really minor thing you'd done, right? So how many things was he doing that just so quickly? Yeah, unlucky maybe.
It's not quite going to make the front page of YouTube or anything like that, but it's you're right. There is a bit of justice every now and then. Yes, good timing. Well captured.
Yes.
Like a very good friend of mine, his wife was driving home with their daughter the other day, and they had their cam going on the car, and so he sent me a link, and the car was coming in the opposite direction. This is in Waikanae, fishtailing down the road, narrowly missed them, and of course that gave them a huge scare. So they turned around to see what happened, and the car was upside down in a ditch. We suspect he might have been under the influence of something, but people who push the barriers inevitably come up short.
Yes.
None of us can ever suggest that we never did anything like that at all in our youth either. Of course, David, I imagine you were just the bastion of Christian motoring, I'm sure.
Now, of course, as we've discussed before on this thing, if you go to Cardium and put the plate in.
Yep.
Love it. Right. Anyway, on to some On some real news, sort of real news. So we have for a while talked in regards to. Oh, hang on, we've got some comments. Morning, it's race weekend. Oh yeah, F1 is back. Yes. Thanks, Ra.
Yeah. Here's
Now,
hoping it's a lot more interesting than Bathurst was over the weekend, because I could have read the label on a soup can and had more fun than watching that. I want my $30 back, thanks, Sky.
Yeah. Bathurst has
The
been
24-hour Le
interesting.
Mans was more interesting.
Bathurst hasn't been interesting since there were winged out Nissan Bluebirds in it. Let's face it.
Yeah, there is that point too, actually. Yeah, and a bit of biff on the track. Now it's all sanitized. Yeah. So thanks, Sky, but $30 wasn't particularly well spent for my weekend package.
Yes.
You know, it's a bad motorsport event when even the commentators are running out of things to actually come up with and say.
Now, BYD has released the pricing for the Shark plug-in hybrid. Now, we normally start with car stuff, but this one's gotten a bit of news out there because, of course, it's the first kind of reasonable attempt at an electrified pickup truck in the market, I think. It's $69,990, which is actually pretty decent. And you've driven this car with me, Graham.
I have, yes.
First of all, people, go to our website or go to EVs and Beyond. You watch my video there. 12,000 people already have, so you should too. $69,990 or $199 a week on lease, which is an interesting one as well. $69,990 for that ute, Graham. Good value, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't sort of, looking at ute prices, they're all over the show, depending on where you source a ute from, what it is. I think it's a bit disingenuous to compare it to a Ranger, unless you're looking at the plug-in Ranger, which we don't have yet, and so therefore we can't make a comparison to. But I don't think it's going to entice.
The rumor I'm hearing is an entry-level plug-in hybrid Ranger will be about $10,000 more.
Right, and so it'll probably still sell on that basis. They're different marketplaces, and if you don't understand the difference,
price-wise, this is about equal to a XLT four-wheel drive Ranger 2-litre turbo.
Yeah, yep. It's not a Ranger competitor, and I think it'd be disingenuous to suggest that it actually is. But will it sell against some of the other utes in that sort of middle ground territory, particularly fleets that buy on the basis of pricing? And particularly on the basis that fleets that are buying, looking at their carbon footprint, moving on forward for contractual reasons, then it's probably going to be a very good box tick exercise for them. It's not a Ranger competitor. It's, and there are a lot of reasons as to why that's not worth going into on the show here right now. But as a standalone product in a sector that it pretty much has to its own, I think it'll do just nicely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm going to take a different view, Graham.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I haven't driven it, and being a ute owner, and sort of having a little bit of background as to why people buy utes, and thinking about electrification and a practical exception, to the so-called gas-guzzling utes that we have out there. This is an interesting beast because its towing capacity is, while it's not great, it is certainly sufficient for a wide range of building applications, and its ability to plug in things to run from it. So this is a different ute competing against a swag of utes. So while it might not be a Ranger competitor, in a way it is, and it's a competitor to Toyota, and it's what it is. It's a competitor to fully ICE utes. So people are going to look at this, I think, first and foremost is, okay, I can buy a Toyota, I can buy a Ford, I can buy a Mitsubishi, I can buy a Nissan, or whatever. But do I want something that's a little bit more practical and a little bit more fuel sufficient, and is a decent looking vehicle? So those that are going to be serious towing, the answer is no. But those that are going to be looking at general recreational use, or what I call a bulk standard commercial trade, then perhaps it will get a little bit of a look in. So it's going to be interesting. And the thing about the BYD Ute is being largely first off the mark with something that's substantive in this genre. They're going to get interest where otherwise they might not. I would agree with you, Graham, if we had a number of competitors that were like the Shark. then they'd be competing against each other more in a niche. But at the moment, being early to the market, I don't think the niche is yet developed. It's going to get, I think it's going to get a wider interest. I could be wrong, but that's my suspicion.
It's very good for what it is, and I use those words carefully. I think it's very, very good. Like Richard and I, we were both pretty pleased with the way that it drove. The level of kit inside the vehicle is really impressive. It's got a really nice interior, and one thing I do like about the BYD product is the interiors. I think are really well finished, well thought out interiors. So in a sense, competitors I would have thought would be things like the Navara, the Triton, maybe the D-Max. So that's sort of what I call mid-level product ute. So Rangers, to an extent, sell on their own badge, if you like. It's almost a case of the badge that you toss on the counter at the bar after work is very important. But for a fleet manager looking at different options for their team that are spending maybe a little bit less, they're looking more at pragmatic purchasing rather than emotive purchasing, these make a lot of sense. And if you look at the numbers and say, well, how is it going to tick all the various boxes that I'm looking at? Particularly as the first entry to the market, the T60, I don't think was ever going to make that particular mark. That wasn't a product to me that was finished. The BYD is a finished, integrated product. It's the first integrated electric ute that we've seen, or Fairview ute for that matter. But I don't think it's a Ranger competitor. I choose my words carefully, but I think it's a mid-level competitor of potentially serious note.
I think you're shortchanging Ranger buyers a little bit there, and they're suggesting that they're just buying because they're throwing the key on the desk. Let's be honest. The Ranger is, and sorry if you're listening from another car brand and you don't agree, it's pretty much the best driving on the road. It has pretty much the best lineup of engines in both the 2-litre and the V6. Interesting that 2-litre is one of the cleanest in the market. But also interestingly, it has the best tech in the ute market. It's got the best screen system, best infotainment system. It's the only one with app connectivity at the moment. It's one of the few that has plug-in power and that kind of stuff. These are those. So there's people who will buy the Ranger for those reasons as well. And this is where that BYD does actually compete. It probably overtakes the Ford as having the best tech. It probably overtakes the Ford as having the best app. It certainly overtakes the Ford in having probably the most, when used correctly, because I love this thing where I watched another video this morning where people go and take an electric vehicle and at its worst, i.e. doing long runs, which people do once every whatever, and then add up the costs of simply running at a charger and then say that it's terribly inefficient. Because they're missing the point. In day-to-day use, it is likely to be more efficient. So there will be people who aren't just buying a Ranger because it's a Ranger. They're buying it because it's all those wonderful things as well. And those are the people where maybe there might be some slip across. But yeah, I think other brands have probably got more to worry about from the BYD than Ford does necessarily.
Yeah, although I think the issue I have, Graham, is that Rangers by and large are a little bit more pricey, as are the Toyotas compared to the others. And if you were competing on price, then yes, you're right, it's not a Ranger competitor. But people aren't buying on price necessarily. They're buying for a whole host of reasons.
Well,
so
it is comparative on price. It's dollar for dollar the same price as the most popular selling Ranger in the country.
Well, that's true. That is true. But I think will it decimate the Ranger? No. Will it chip away at the Ranger? Probably a little bit at the margins.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I also think it's going to bring, which things I've always been reluctant to see, is it's going to bring people that wouldn't need a ute or buy a ute into the ute market. Same thing as the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck is a terrible thing for CO2 because 90% of the people buying a Cybertruck don't need a ute. The BYD will do that to an extent. I think in the private buying market particularly, people will buy it because it's cool and because it's got neat tech and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
When they would probably be better off served by an Atto 3 or a CL or a Model 3 or a Model Y or whatever. So an interesting one. But
You're encapsulating the entire issue that we have with the ute market in New Zealand. I'm a former ute owner myself, David, you got one right now, is that the last 10 years, actually 12 years, I've seen a transformation in why people buy utes. And you just hit the nail on the head there. An awful lot of ute owners don't actually need to have utes. We talk about it, or pickup trucks or trucks. So talking about the Cybertruck, for example, or even you're worried about people converting over to a BYD Shark that shouldn't be driving cars. Well, hello, there's the light truck market in New Zealand since 2012 and the onset of the new Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Press repeat.
certainly they become more car-like, and the rise of them. But interestingly, when you look at the stats and the percentage of the New Zealand vehicle market, and I'm looking here at the light vehicle market, ute sales from 2010 to around 2023 rose from about 21% of the fleet to about 29 to 30% of the fleet. So a 10% increase. It's not as big as people keep making out. The thing is, they don't have as many model variants as cars. And when you look at cars and you look at the monthly sales and say, well, there's 800 Rangers sold and 600 Toyotas Hilux sold, they look big numbers compared to 400 of this and 500 of that. But there's many more cars sold. So the big change in our car market actually has been the demise of the passenger vehicle and the rise of SUVs, which has gone from, the SUVs have gone from about 10% of the market up to mid 50s. That's been a big change. And just coming back to the BYD Shark, two comments I'll make. One is a personal one. I only have a ute because I tow, and I tow something heavy. If I didn't have something heavy, I wouldn't have a ute. And I wish there were more people who would think like that, because there are a lot of big vehicles that people don't need. But SUVs tend to be the big sin in that one, because that's where people do. But the BYD Shark has done something about in the ute market that we haven't had for the last few years, and it's caused chatter. People are talking about it.
Yep.
And that's a big deal.
Yep.
Yes. Half the battle's won.
Right, let's move on to some actual industry news for the day. Over to there. Right. So,
I didn't realize we weren't talking about the industry, but there you are. What do I know?
More from the Giltrap Group, and that is that Motorcorp Group's Cleamau Drive property is up for sale. So the Motorcorp Group property at 3 Cleamau Drive, Sylvia Park, has been placed on the market with commercial realtor CBRE as it seeks to relocate its 15-strong administration team closer to Giltrap Group headquarters in Grey Lynn. So I assume that means they're moving to the Death Star. The move was prompted by the relocating the Motorcorp Group's parts, service and technical training operations from 3 and 6 Cleamau Drive to a new purpose-built facility in Pavilion Drive, Airport Oaks. Motorcorp Group Chief Executive Stephen Kinchington says the company has doubled its parts sales volume since 2017, therefore it is necessary to vacate its 2 premises at Cleamau Drive and relocate to a new location near the airport. Logically, there's no point in retaining the property at 3 Cleamau Drive, which is why the Giltrap Group has placed it on the market. Ideally, we're looking for office space closer to the Giltrap Group's head office in Grey Lynn. We need to find something that best suits us. So there you go. If you're wanting a building that's well set up for a car company, offices, training and warehousing, then quite a big yard too. There you go. I'm not sure what this is going to mean for Hyundai, which does, I think, share some space in that yard. I'm sure they've got their own plans in place.
They're building.
Sorry,
their buildings next door, Richard.
It shares a wall, so they've got Hyundai got the 2 buildings. Of course, they've got a shared wall, but it's a different street number, so I don't believe that half is actually for sale. It's just one side of the wall as such, but interesting. I wonder if we'll see a Chinese brand pick it up. We're certainly seeing that Giltrap really are focusing their efforts on their kind of core central site these days. They say they're looking for offices nearby. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up in the same building, though I do wonder if there's some form of contractual thing there with the brands they work with not to be adjacent to other brands. So, yeah, we will see. But no, a property that's been in the automotive industry a very long time.
Yeah, that street, Richard, is Cleamau Drive is an automotive drive, but it's getting less if they move out and it's not filled by automotive.
Yeah,
but I'm not surprised.
If they leave it, just leaves the Hyundai Group. Yeah,
I'm not surprised if they've developed their parts group at the airport, Airport Oaks. There are a lot of that out there, and centralisation, easy access to the airport. So once you take that bit out of the head office function, then there's the number of staff that deal with the financing and the models and all that sort of stuff is a lot less. So you can fit that space into a lot of other spaces. So yeah.
The other interesting thing about that Cleanmail Drive location is IKEA. IKEA is going to be incredibly adjacent. I think it's being sold as being opposite IKEA, though technically I think it's like the back of IKEA, or the side, remember the car park, I'm not sure. But essentially that area could end up being becoming more retail focused, or who knows what'll happen once IKEA's in there. IKEA can be quite a bringer of change when it comes to an area's usage. Other businesses want to be near.
Well, a vast footprint, that's for sure. Just actually, the IKEA site, is that going across at the side of the road on the corner of the motorway? Is that where the new IKEA site is?
I think IKEA technically is back into there. I'm not sure.
I thought it was the other side of Sylvia Park, just quietly. But
well, I mean,
what it is going to do is going to turn this. Sorry, David.
That street backs on to Sylvia Park if you go north, and since Sylvia Park's been there, the traffic in and out of that area is got difficult. So you put IKEA there with Sylvia Park in close proximity. If you want to be able to move stuff in and out easily, then that's not the location anymore.
So no, IKEA is actually on that side of the ramp. So IKEA is between the ramp into Sylvia Park and there. So yeah, that area behind is going to be so it's going to change a lot. Cleanmail Drive is going to change.
And that is, if you're not an Aucklander right now, follow the bouncing ball on this one. That area is already traffic hell. It's always been an absolute nightmare in terms of access to the motorway, access off the motorway. Sylvia Park itself has just always faced traffic bottlenecks, no matter what it's done. And I do hope, for the sake of IKEA, that there's been parking solutions or traffic solutions thought of, because for a potential retailer moving into that area, just to take up some of the IKEA buzz, so to speak, nothing frustrates motorists more than the inability to get to where they want to go. And we've seen that happening right now with Northwest up in the area that I'm at, West Auckland, where there are real issues right now around access to the motorway and some of the key tenants going into that property. And it's becoming a vehicle precinct as well, hence the reason I bring it up. One of the central issues is people cannot actually access, or more to the point, they can't get out of the property. And it's a real issue that planners are starting to struggle with, is how do you actually get the people out of the location? Getting them in is one thing, but getting them out is a whole different world of pain. And I think that Sylvia Park faces that risk going forward. I hope it's well managed for the vehicle trade that's already there.
Well, speaking of getting out, we have other news, and that is Auckland City Toyota's Greylin is moving to a new premise in 2025. And this is actually linked to that Cleanmail Drive story, because my understanding is this is another Giltrap family-owned piece of land. They, of course, formerly owned the dealership itself. So Armstrong's chief executive, Troy Kendies, confirmed changes to its Auckland City Toyota operation, with the firm acquiring another property on Great North Road. Kendi says the company plans to relocate the current Greylin site to the new location in late 2025. We are highly excited about the prospect of developing a new generation Twitter store packed with innovation, Kendi says. Over the past 3 years, we've added substantial capacity in Green Lane when we doubled the size of our operation there. More recently, we have increased our footprint in Mount Wellington with the super site, knowing that at some point we would reduce the footprint of Grey Lynn. So what they're suggesting there is that big site now, I suspect, is going to get reduced down to more of a store and smaller service operation, with the load being switched over to Grey Lynn and that massive site at Mount Wellington. Kendi also confirmed that David Fox is no longer with Auckland City Toyota. This has followed a structure review of how our Toyota business operated, and we subsequently disestablished the standalone chief executive role and reverted back to our previous Auckland City Toyota structure, Kennedy says. Shay Wright is currently general manager of Auckland City Toyota Grey Lynn and chief executive, he says. Now, we're not sure if this is tied together, but a new car franchise is set to take over historic Grey Lynn Yard. Reflecting the changing trading conditions in the Auckland market, a new car franchise is taking over one of the few small car yards remaining on Great North Road strip in Grey Lynn. The historic car in the corner of Great North Road and Maidstone Street was previously occupied by Easy Auto 123, John Andrew, and former Daihatsu franchise Cathay Motors. AutoTalk understands a different new car franchise is poised to take over the lease on the corner at 49 Great North Road and seeks to confirm this with the party involved. Eagers Automotive has recently shuttered its fixed price pre-owned Easy Auto 123 operation in Greyling, but with the other 2 sites remain in operation. We've approached them for comment and they have not yet come back to us. I suspect that's too small for Toyota, but we will see. Maybe in combination with the Lexus operation that's moving off the side across the road, maybe. Who knows? Yeah, that's interesting to see what's going on there. So you've got Auckland City Toyota going, you've got this site now vacated and being taken over by another franchise, and you've got the Lexus dealership on the other side of that corner, which has already been announced and confirmed is going down to a massive new site in Newmarket. There is a lot of movement going on at the moment.
Great North Road has just always been a location of churn, has it? That sort of golden mile of Auckland has always been churn, and I'm almost surprised the story doesn't actually end with nobody going in there and a developer moving in to build more apartments or a retail precinct instead, because that's traditionally been what's happening in Great North Road recently. Is it's been
I think the demand for both is actually a bit weak at the moment, though. The demand for big apartment blocks and retail is down right now. So it's a tricky one. Right your lease to a car yard is meaningful, but clearly,
that's right.
Clearly, the value wasn't there for a used car operation. Right, on to another story that we've been looking at for a while. Air New Zealand hires former Tour New Zealand boss as new head of brand and marketing. Former Tour New Zealand boss Neeraj Lala has been appointed as the new head of brand and marketing for Air New Zealand. Lala says it's a privilege to land at Air New Zealand. See what he did there. And continuous passion for moving Kiwis from A to B and continuing to help connect Aotearoa to the world. It's humbling to lead a passionate and talented brand and marketing team of one of our most iconic global brands. Winning the hearts and minds of all Kiwis through helping us succeed and thrive at home and around the world is a journey I cannot wait to be a part of, Lala says. Tour New Zealand confirmed Lala's resignation as chief executive in July. Lala had been with the organisation for 26 years, served 4 years as chief executive and contributed significantly to its growth and success. When he said it was the right time in his life and career to transition out of the role, and Tatsuya Ishikawa is acting chief executive. So interesting port for him to arrive at. Some had picked Air New Zealand as potentially being one of his destinations. Be interesting to see what he does
there too, Richard. My thinking, Richard, when I read that article was, will he become Greg Forum's successor?
I would say that's pretty much part of the plan map. Yes, yeah. So we will see. We will see. Be interesting to see if he can get that job. I think he fits that job very well. I'd almost argue maybe he fits that job a little bit better than the Toyota job. That might be a bit.
I agree. I think Toyota was increasingly becoming too narrow a focus for him and what he wanted to do and the sorts of skills that he was developing for his own professional career. This is a good move for him.
Yeah. And of course that means he's in Auckland now. And Neeraj, if you're watching this or you're listening, Graham and I would really love to access, I'm sure Dave would too, that special invite-only lounge at Auckland Airport International. I'd like that. Maybe a few business class vouchers thrown in. You're not in the trade now, so it wouldn't be bribery. I mean, just
it wouldn't be. No, that's right.
Be nice.
That's right.
Mate, it would be great to
look after people that look after you, right, Richard?
Exactly.
Speaking as a loyal Air New Zealand customer here.
Yes.
Right. Enough.
Have you seen the prices across the Tasman the last couple of weeks? Oh, $1,500, $2,000 for return to Australia. Crazy. Anyway.
Well, I just bought tickets to Sydney a couple of weeks ago, and I think the cheapest airfares in, I think pre-COVID was the cheapest return airfares to Sydney that I've purchased in 5 years on now, and I think I'm backwards and forwards across the ditch for, I think it was just on $500. That's seat and bag as well, not just the Povo pack. So no, I'm not going to complain. I think that's
about the same as flying to Christchurch at the moment on 3 weeks' notice.
Yeah, pretty much. You're a bit less than Christchurch, actually. Yes.
Yep. Anyway, now motor vehicle technology is cutting pollutants. Improvements to the motor vehicle fleet are helping to reduce air pollution emissions in New Zealand, according to a recent study. It's one of the findings of the Ministry for the Environment and Stats NZ's latest 3-year update about the country's air quality. Our Air 2024 brings together recently updated stats, indicator data, as well as insights from research literature. The report shows that air pollutants levels have decreased at most monitoring sites over the last 8 years. However, some sites showed worsening air quality, while pollutant levels at sites where air quality improved were at times about the levels in. I've got my tongue tied there. Anyway, emissions from motor vehicles as well as aviation, shipping, and rail were lower in 2019 and in 2012 for all monitored pollutants except sulfur dioxide. Air pollutants from motor vehicle exhaust emissions are reducing per kilometre as a result of vehicle emission standards, lower emission vehicles, and improvements in engine technology and fuel quality, says Natasha Lewis, MFE's Deputy Secretary of Strategy, Stewardship and Performance. However, the nation's vehicle fleet reached its largest size to date in 2022. Annual kilometres travelled by motorists have increased over recent decades. Road vehicles contribute significantly to different types of air pollution and were the largest source of nitrogen oxides at 39%. The study shows that air pollution from motor vehicles is still associated with a high number of hospitalizations, premature deaths, and substantial social costs. So,
isn't this tied into the whole VKT issue as well?
Yeah, look, these. Firstly, I was pleased to see this because when the original vehicle exhaust emissions rule was brought in the mid-noughties, my team at the time developed that, as you might recall, Graham, and we had a massive. The thing that when I read this, I sort of started rethinking the issues that we had at the time. And one of the biggest issues that the Ministry of Transport had with industry and with other officials was that the modelling showed that if you brought the rules in, which we did by 2006-07, it was going to take a decade before we began to see any material change. And the industry's argument Veer at the time said, well, that's so long, why do it? And because my response was, you've got to put a stake in the ground. And once you put a stake in the ground, you start your measurements from there. And if you never put a stake in the ground, we're never going to get change. So the first thing was, how do you get the change? And second thing is that improvement was going to take a decade before we'd start to materially see it. Then the issue became around what happens if you get an increase in vehicle numbers. Well, it turns out not a lot if you've got the right vehicle standards in place, because it's all about reducing the amount that's coming out the tailpipe. The problem was initially was the longevity of old diesel vehicles with the PM10 and PM2.5, and 2.5 being the really nasty stuff. But vehicle emissions around the nitrous oxides is the one that you need to be able to bring under control. And so the increasing fuel exhaust emission standards made a big change. Since 2019, I would expect to see a bigger change, because the one thing that electrification has done is that it is the biggest harbinger of emission change. So that's one of the hidden benefits of electrification of our fleet, is the ability for it to change. But again, we will need to see a decade of continual penetration of low emission vehicles before you start seeing that at a fleet level. And I think our fleet is sort of at a stage now where I'm not expecting it to get that much larger unless we get continued population growth, which we has slowed down. Because if the fleet stays about the same, then we should get increasing rate of lowering emissions. Yeah. So it's a complex picture. There are many variables to it, and it's fuel type, but electrification of the fleet, those low emission vehicles, that's the next big thing that will help lower emissions. Vehicle exhaust emission standards goes only so far. After that, you've got to change the energy source.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple of things that I've just observations to make there without sort of, I'm not going to relitigate the whole exhaust emission rule. God, I remember those fun times. Was first of all, VKT, I guess, 2024 numbers, I suspect we will see a further reduction as well, because VKT plays so much in the statistics of what's happening on our motorways and our urban roads. And as we know, the decline of economic activity, particularly in the second half of this year, has definitively dropped the movements of not just light vehicles, but heavy movements as well. And the second thing, speaking as an Aucklander, and I don't necessarily always wear an electric vehicle cap on my head. As you know, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool petrol head, and I'll probably still be sniffing petrol fumes that everyone else is still, plugging their charger in. That the single biggest improvement for Auckland has been the electrification of the bus fleet. And not an Aucklander, you may not realise what a huge change that has made to central and suburban Auckland, because our previous bus fleet was not only older, but it was diesel engine vehicles that are stopping and starting on a consistent basis under load, which is where, in my way of thinking, a lot of the harm is occurring. There's been a real push to electrify those buses. A lot of products come on the road, particularly in the last year or so. And to me, it's made a sea change in the air quality in our urban areas. And if you did nothing else, if you made no change at all to our fleet, you would look at the vehicles that have the greatest impact in our urban areas on a daily basis, particularly because of that stop-start motion, under load. What a win. So congratulations to AT for having the cojones to actually fund and organise a fleet of these vehicles that, to me, are making a huge change to our air quality. Everything else almost falls by the wayside by comparison, in my opinion.
They've taken so much work in downtown Auckland to tidy it up and green it up and make it look pretty and make it livable. If they hadn't taken those diesel buses away, it would have been all for naught. It just would not
all for nothing.
Anywhere near as usable.
Absolutely all for nothing. Yep.
And on that theme, the stop-start, I've always been an advocate for roads of national significance once Stephen Joyce got the idea off the ground, on the basis that when you look at our national travel patterns, the smoother the road, the better the quality of the road, the more ability to travel at a constant speed also lessens the energy usage. So it's a good idea, not just for petrol and diesel, but also electric vehicles. And so air quality is a function of all of those things. And all too often people who criticize the vehicle industry and just talk about, ban these cars or ban this fuel source, forget that it's a complex picture. And that it requires a range of things to be able to improve air quality. And vehicles is only part of it. Good roads is another part of it. And urban design is another part of it. And of course, there are other air quality sources as well. But the science is pretty good at being able to pick up what is from vehicles and what is from home use and what is from industry. That's not an arguable point. The point is that when you look at vehicles, it's not just the standards. It's the fuel source, and it's the quality of the roads in the urban environment and the rural road environment that overall gives an improvement to air quality outcomes.
Oh, I did delight in watching the MTA's pre-election debate last year, watching the ACT party transport spokesperson attempt to argue on that exact point and have Julianne Genter, whether you like her or love her, jump to her phone, look into the thing when he said there was no data that any of this was killing anyone, and who put it in front of him and go, Anyway.
To be honest, he should have known better, because we've had those conversations between us.
He's an engineer too.
I know.
Right. Now,
inform him better next time, David.
A slight break in just their transport spokesperson, not their climate spokesperson. I'm not sure we're talking about the same person. Hopefully we are. Now, a brief break in industry news to talk about some industry-related motorsport. Now, firstly, of course, Liam Lawson making his debut as a proper full-time, at least for 6 races, Formula 1 driver this weekend. So I hope you're all watching that. In fact, Graham, probably that's what I'll have to do instead of sleeping on the boat on Monday morning. And then we have had Hayden Paddon, who has won his second ERC, or European Rally Championship. Hyundai New Zealand Rally driver Hayden Paddon and co-driver John Kennard have won back-to-back European Rally Championship titles. Paddon and Kennard cemented their successful title defence in the Hyundai i20N Rally 2 at the final round over the past weekend in Poland, ERC Rally Silesia, with third place. This backed up victory in the prior round in Wales. In a season where consistency was rewarded, with the duo securing a finish in every round of the championship. Such a good win for Hayden. Such a nice guy. Very involved, more involved than people would think in the automotive industry in New Zealand. He pops up a lot. Highly valued by Hyundai New Zealand, obviously, and just an all-round really nice guy. Hyundai New Zealand Chief Executive Scott Kelsey praised the team's performance. Hayden and John's achievements on the European stage are truly remarkable. Their drive, determination, and consistent success represent the core values of Hyundai. We are incredibly proud of their back-to-back championship wins and how they continue raising the bar for New Zealand motorsport. And good on Hyundai New Zealand for continuing to back those guys. I know this is something that happens very far from home, but I know that they are still very good supporters of
a long relationship, hasn't it?
Yeah, Hayden and
it was good to see because I think he could have done better in the WRC, but he sort of that I was a premature exit for him from my point of view. The other racing win that I noted over the weekend that I was pleased to see was the 24-hour Le Mans. They had three drivers. Scott Dixon was one of them, and the Cadillac won that. I was watching that as opposed to Bathurst, which I started Bathurst, and you're right, it was pretty much a possession, but the thing with the 24-hour Le Mans is the attrition rate can be quite high. But it was a good race, and Scott Dixon's an amazing driver as well. The different sort of races that he enters in his stellar career over the years. As Kiwis, we do pretty well on different sporting venues on the international stage.
How good is New Zealand on the global motorsport front? It's just a question now. It's not a question of what you watch. It's a question of what don't you watch.
I know.
I think part of the why we've done so well is we've got to take a pat on our own back. Is that the New Zealand automotive industry has been very forward in backing young talent. You know, if you look right from PJ and Colin backing Scott many years ago, and the other people behind him, through the various sponsorships that are put in place that run well beyond their starting out in karting and on through into other sports. The Twitter Racing Series, which is world class, and Twitter has done a great job there of developing that series as a way of introducing talent. There's multiple Formula One drivers now that have spent time in the TRS. If you look at Lance Stroll, Colapinto, Lawson, I believe there's others in there. Those are the ones I can confirm off the top of my head. And of course, multiple other successful drivers in other series that were raced in that as well. So good on you, motor industry.
Plus we have a really good grassroots motorsport events, if you like, and infrastructure around us. We're really lucky, whether it's karting or it's entry-level rally or hill climbs, or I was involved in drag racing or basic circuit racing. We've been really lucky. We still are. There are so many opportunities for you to go out and compete at very, very basic amateur levels, but these things start and float their way up. We're really lucky.
Yeah, and even on the motocross stage, sorry, I was trying to remember her name. He's won several world champions. So across the the woman one.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Who's current world champion. So we do quite well. I know she rides a Kawasaki. So just trying to remember her name, from the South Island. So we do quite well, and Graham, it's right. I think we have a really good club level system going on.
Courtney Duncan.
Courtney Duncan. Yeah. So it's something that's quite hard to maintain, and it does wax and wane a little bit. But we do well. The system is supported very strongly by the car dealers and the motorcycle dealers. So yeah, good on them.
So the next time that little 7-year-old comes into your yard with a handwritten letter asking for sponsorship, just have a think. They might be the next Courtney Duncan or the next Liam Lawson.
And they do. Up here in Auckland or West Auckland, it's very much speedway. So we get quite a few little exactly that. parents coming in with their kids and putting them into the sort of entry-level speedway, which tends to be the thing out here. But you're absolutely right with that little bit of level support. And sometimes all it takes is a couple of $100 here and there and a few stickers on the car to give people the start that they deserve. And we make so much about New Zealand's achievement on the yachting stage, or I don't know how it's gone this morning. Let's ask that question.
It was a night off. It was a night off.
It was a night off. Okay. Yeah. But motorsport, man, we just consistently just whack it out of the park. Here we go again, and it always annoys me that the sniffy, and Richard, just close your ears for a second. The sniffy media out there, it's like, look, the dirty old cars are car racing and doing something out there and probably burning some emissions while they win some trophies, but they're off over there. Meanwhile,
hey, I've got a foot in all the camps now, so
you do, yes. Anyway, my fledgling motorsport career came to nothing, even though I gave it a crack. But I can certainly say, observing, for example, the drag racing scene, there was no limit to the opportunities. If you really wanted to push it, you had some money, yes, because it takes money. Mad Mike, for example, was on the scene when I was racing back down in the early noughties. Mad Mike was running around in an RX3 wagon that he famously blew the flywheel off on the start line and then actually catapulted through the scuttle paddle on his RX3 wagon. And there's someone like us racing dirty old cars, and here he is now, a global superstar with his sponsorship that he has and his ambassador role, I suppose.
Mike came from freestyle motocross, which was a commercial entity well before motorsport really became something you could easily could make a living with. And he learned the business before he learned the racing, and that gave him the room to get up to speed with everything else. Smart man.
Smart people. Very, very smart people. Yep.
My motorsport career ended with a little bit of drag racing in my automatic AW11, and I won races because what would happen is I'd go to drag events, and my AW11 would get off the line perfectly every time, and the guy in the overpowered turbo Integra next to me a lot of the time wouldn't. So while he could do a 13 and I could only do a 15 and a half, there was a 50-50 chance he wouldn't do the 13 and I would do the and 100% chance I would do the 15. So yeah, that's anyway. Right, we've got a few more stories to go, but let's blow through them really quickly, because I forgot to put my daughter's lunchbox in her bag today, and I've got to drive it down to Kindy for her. Honda New Zealand appoints new advertising agency. Honda New Zealand has appointed Auckland-based Thompson Spencer as its new advertising agency. The agency will soon launch a significant new campaign for the brand. According to Stop Press, Thompson Spencer will manage Honda's creative and media strategy, production, and rollout for the campaign, working to elevate the brand's presence and engagement across all media platforms. The partnership marks a significant step for both companies as they collaborate to bring in an really very consistent advertising for a number of years. So it'll be interesting to see what they do there, and also good to see the business go to a local entity as well.
Might I observe as an outsider that's possibly time for a change? I mean, you're right. Honda's had a very consistent strategy all the way through, but I also sense that it's possibly time for a change of that strategy, just in how their market perceives the product. This is possibly a good time to do so.
It has a somewhat
casting shade upon the product
aesthetic to it.
I think also, Richard, I wondered when I read this, knowing that Honda's working on an electrification platform in the next year as a target year to begin bringing that out, and the number of models they want to introduce by 2030, that the New Zealand distributor has said, well, actually, we've got to think a little bit differently about this. Maybe it's time for a change and some good old local knowledge on how we penetrate the market.
Yeah. If people had ruled out Honda on electrification, the 5th best-selling electric vehicle in America last month was a Honda. So there you go. Tesla unveils futuristic cybercab and robovan. The Tesla chief executive Elon Musk and Trump fanatic arrived at the We Robot unveiling event in Los Angeles on Friday, and the company's latest innovation, the Cybercab Robotaxi, a fully self-driving vehicle with no steering wheel or pedals. They're saying it will cost less than $30,000, doesn't have a steering wheel, blah, blah, blah. They also showed off a crazy futuristic van. Neither of these things are going into production as they look. They probably won't do what they're going to do. But
actual production version, maybe.
The share price and Tesla fanboys will love them. I mean, where is my Tesla Roadster?
I just yawned. I yawned when I read this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like Tesla cars. I like the technology that Elon has built, but this one feels a bit like we haven't done anything for a while. Let's distract. Um, yeah, the Robovan is super cool, but I just it'll turn up probably as like airport shuttles on closed roads kind of thing. But
with 3 steering wheels and 2 drivers, and
yeah,
shape may vary, and all the usual bits and pieces too. And this is one of the issues with Tesla. It would appear your observation is correct that Tesla sometimes is seen as needing a distraction from the issues at hand. It's like, look over here, and right now, with the concern over Tesla's aging product line and no apparent heir successor to the currently, admittedly, very successful models it has, but as we know, car manufacturers need to have a very long pipeline of new models coming on through and innovation. In the absence of that, and possibly distractions with other things as well, it's like, nope, nothing going on here at all. But look over here, we've thought of quickly, guys, what is it? A thing. We've got a new thing to show you.
well,
that
$40 million a month he's spending on Trump could easily be redirected to vehicle development.
Yes.
Yeah. And improving quality control of the product. You know, the 5th recall within a year for the Tesla truck, the Cybertruck, which has caused a little bit of distraction that they didn't want. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, Tesla does need to have a better pipeline, and I think Musk has been distracted. But they are still considered to be the leader in electrification. They still be considered as it's the standard. The other manufacturers are catching up, but they haven't caught up yet. So you can't be dismissive. Well, I can't be dismissive of Tesla because they have actually done a really good job. But it's a company that that sort of lurches from success to worry, and they've got to be a little bit better than that, I think.
I wonder if their future could be in developing technology rather than cars. So maybe slowly exit the car business and just start selling their engines, their motors, platform software, self-driving to other brands. That'd probably be a heck of a lot less risky, and it would be great for the emission supposedly of decarbonising transport to do that. So yeah, right. EV owners will get, or maybe hit with high ACC levies. Proposed ACC levy rise will see EV owners paying up to $40 more than owners of hybrids or small petrol cars, says Drive Electric. In its submission to the ACC, it says EV owners will pay $109.60 a year, while owners of fuel-efficient hybrid petrol car vehicles could pay $69, and efficient petrol cars $93. Drive Electric chair Kirsten Corson says the proposal is really poor timing after the government ditched cash incentives for EVs, imposed EV road user charges, and weakened tailpipe emission standards for car imports. BEVs, battery electric vehicles, will pay higher ACC levies than efficient petrol vehicles if they are driving the average number of kilometres, when they are likely to be safer vehicles, says Drive Electric. So look, yeah, this is another side effect of just the kind of the inequity we're seeing at the moment while we're in this temporary phase of having ruck on EVs but not on other small, similarly sized vehicles. It'll go away theoretically when ruck for all comes in, I guess.
Well, I mean, I read this in knowing a little bit from my history with ACC and jobs that I've had, how they structure their levies. I had a question mark. I couldn't understand why ACC have gone down this route. There's no logical reason why they should be paying higher ACC levies. It goes against the whole basis and structure. And if they've just simply said, "Oh, it's because they're paying ruck, and this is how we do it for ruck," then you get around and you change that, because it's not about ruck; it's about the type of vehicle and the risk profile that vehicle creates for ACC levies. And it seems to me that ACC haven't thought long enough and hard enough about how to accurately categorize risk with EVs. It's a schmozzles. It's a shambles.
It's a lazy move again, though. It will it will start to differentiate when the ruck system hopefully changes. Interesting on that, I was chatting to a very experienced industry exec the other day who I felt for a long time has been quite anti-EV, and he's very much changed his tune. And his comment was that once ruck for all comes in, and once we're kind of at EVs doing 500 kilometers and charging 0 to 80 to 20 to 80 in 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. Then it's all over. And I put it in, well, we're almost there we're pretty much there on the tech now. So we're really just waiting for the ruck. So yeah, it's an interesting thing where that ruck sits.
Well, there are a whole pile of issues here. The national cost to government of managing fuel excise duty doesn't cost them a lot of money in a year for compliance. I think it's probably less than $1 million. If we move to ruck all out for light vehicles, that cost of compliance and managing it is about a $50 million hit up front, and then the annual cost of maintenance is still quite high. And there's still a lot at risk. So some officials worry about that and say, well, why would you do that? And my answer always has been, if the government moves ahead and brings in ruck and leaves one band 0 to 3.5 tonnes, then they will have screwed the light vehicle sector, because you do not bring ruck in on that basis. You still have to profile it and do it by a weight basis, so that the smaller vehicles are not paying the same amount of road user charges as a big ute. Which is what would happen if you left them all in one group of 3.5 tonnes. So there's still a lot of water to go under the bridge.
Which
but
is
I come
what
back
they've
to
done
my
to
main
EV
point.
owners at the moment.
Yeah, no, but I come back to my point, Richard. The ACC levies should be independent of whether it's fuel excise duty or road user charges. That's not what the ACC levies is about. ACC levies for vehicles is all about the risk profile a certain type of vehicle creates for their ACC funding, and they just haven't got their heads around it. They've always had a slightly different structure for road user charges for light commercial vehicles, which I think has been a bit lazy, but it's been convenient because they've been at the bigger end of light vehicles. But now that we have ruck for EVs, they need to get their A into G and sort that out. So no, I'm very sort of annoyed by what they've done here, because it just does not make sense.
Right, I think we'll call it there for today. Another big day of news, even though I thought it was a relatively quiet week in news. So yes, we will be, Graham and I were going on the road this weekend. Looking forward to that.
Yeah.
AutoTalk Live next week.
Incredible.
Email me, richard@automediagroup.co.nz if you haven't got a ticket. I have a couple of free tickets left, but if not, we've still got the odd little theatre seat going, but otherwise we're pretty much sold out. Who knows? Come to me, see what we can do. We can always try and squeeze you in the back row.
We'll see you in Christchurch on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the day. Now, Graham and I are going to do a little bit of a weekly wrap there for the stage. Simon, you can flick me an email, richard@automediagroup.co.nz, and I'll sort you out. If you're a dealer, you got to be a dealer, Simon. You got to be a dealer for the free ticket. You can get a paid ticket.
Yes.
Got to keep correcting these things. Yeah, he's going to send me an email. So that's underway. We will be back with this next week, but we'll run the little live one first and then go on from there. Who knows? Because we won't be putting that live on the day.
Won't be live?
No,
Is that
it won't be
because
live. It won't be
you
live.
just can't trust me in front of a studio audience to say the wrong thing?
No. Just. Anyway, right. Well, look, Simon's gone and dumped his contact details on Facebook. You're a brave man, Simon, but we'll sort you out. Cool. Right. So thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next week for another AutoTalk Weekly Wrap.
Happy weekend.